Oh, that music can only mean one thing. It's time for the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg White. Jason, what's up?
What's up, G-Dub?
You know, just doing my thing here on the east side of the country. What about you?
I'm doing the same. It didn't seem like I had much of a break because I was so busy in December, and I was already out at Chuckwalla this last weekend. And
How many days? How many days were you out there?
3 days. 3 days. Did Saturday, Sunday, the Members Day on Monday. So fun. Like, you know, back in the day, a long time ago, when I was a kid, I remember you'd always hear about people all testing and riding out at Willow Springs all the time, and Chuckwalla's kind of become that place now because JD Beach was out there on Monday. I saw Chris Orich. I saw Dylan Code. They were doing some stuff with the USMCA coaching thing. I think they were doing some video stuff, and so you had Jason Aguilar. It just seemed like there was Corey Alexander came out. So there's a lot of people out there riding that have been pretty influential figures in our sport for a long time. Chris and Dylan weren't riding, but yeah, there was some fast people out there again this weekend getting ready for 2019.
Yeah, there's so much stuff going on right now that we don't know about. You know, riders trying to set up rides and everything. It's going to be fun to watch the MotoAmerica series kind of roll out new rides, new riders, or old riders coming back into the series. I'm pretty excited for these next couple of weeks leading up to the season that starts. We're going up the first weekend of April, I think.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny you say that because I talk to people that you have to educate a little bit to let them know that, hey, everything's going okay, and there might be some new teams, and people sit there and go, well, what new teams? What could there possibly be? There's nothing out there, but there's always things going on, and even like the Jason Aguilar thing, we haven't really spoke too much about Jason, but he's working on some things, and that obviously he's getting ramped up, he's getting ready. But the other guy, I forgot to even tell you that I don't know how I left out, but Joe Roberts was out there for all 3 days. He was on a Moto2 bike. He was on a KTM chassis Moto2 bike, the exact bike that Sam Lowe's rode last year with a Honda motor in it. And
for those who don't know, Joe Roberts currently, or 2018, competed in Moto2, MotoGP series. Go ahead.
Yeah, so he was out there. He had the bike that Sam rode last year. It wasn't on the new current one with the Triumph. Obviously, those are all back there. But he's going to leave that bike out here, Greg, just to test. So he has a bike to ride. Really was fun catching up with him and talking to him a little bit and getting his views on things. He's obviously teammate to Iker Lecuona this next year in the Moto2 class, who had some good results. Young kid, 19 years old. So Joe was really optimistic about the possibilities of what could happen in Moto2. Told him that he's on our fantasy league for Moto2. So I said I might have to pick him this year. He's a lone American working hard over there, you know?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, and the benefit too of that's incredible, having a Moto2 bike, even though it's not the new Triumph engine, but having that style of bike, a motorcycle made specifically for racing in the States, having it in the States, I mean, is that he can ride Dunlop tires. So I'm sure that he can get tires that are either identical or very similar to what he races on in the Moto2 series, I would think.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And I think you're right about that. I was laughing because he was there obviously on the track days on a Moto2 bike. And I don't know if all those people have ever seen a bike go through a corner that fast. Like it is interesting because, you know, I'm out there, I'll be riding around with people. So I got mirrors. So I kind of see what's coming around and coming up. And man, the closing speeds were so fast, but we're so used to saying that on straightaways, right? Like with big bikes to small bikes. The closing speed that he had just through cornering was incredible. And he looked fit, he looked happy, he looked excited. So yeah, I'm hoping for good things for him this year. And you just never know who you're going to run into when you go out there for those days at the beginning of the month at Chuckwalla, people testing.
What about Phillip Island Classic? It's getting closer and closer and closer. Any news about that? When are you leaving? That type of stuff.
You know, it's funny. I end up leaving here next Tuesday, and I go to Chuckwalla again, and I'm out there from Wednesday through Sunday. They have the CVMA races out there, so I'll be out there for that whole weekend. There'll be some neat things to report back to you on about that because I know some people that are coming out to test and race that weekend and things. And but Greg, literally, there's a group of us that after the shootout race on Sunday, we're headed right to the airport. We'll probably just get a couple quick showers there at the cabins, and then we'll rip off to the airport. We catch our flight Sunday night to Phillip Island. So yeah, it's coming up fast. This month of January is going to fly by for me, and so I know everybody's getting really excited about it. So yeah, I'm pumped.
I can't wait to hear the stories. So more than likely we'll record the podcast then next Tuesday. You'll have time in the morning to do that before you leave to Chuckwalla.
Yeah, we'll probably do it next week, and then when I'm over in Australia, we'll try to figure out a way that we can still do it, so I can report to you from over there.
Perfect.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, cool, man. I'm looking forward to hearing about all that stuff. But let's kick things off, Jason, by talking about a news item that came out recently that I'm so pumped about in the World Superbike Series. In World Supersport, it was announced 22-year-old María Herrera is set to become the first female ever to contest full-time World Supersport. Now, she's going to do it on that MS Racing Yamaha R6, her team for 2018. She was on the R3 last year in World Supersport 300. We know that the R3 didn't quite meet expectations, and she was rumored to go to a Kawasaki in World Supersport 300, but shifted gears and now full-time in World Supersport. Jason, you were the first American to ever stand on a podium in World Supersport, so you know the series well. What do you think about Maria's big move in World Supersport full-time?
I love it. And I'll tell you why. Because Anna Carrasco won a championship this year, the 300 World Championship that we're all aware of. First woman to ever do so. And what a job. I mean, incredible. I think everybody was really happy about that. But you kind of mentioned it a little bit. Maria was on an R3. That bike obviously had some struggles. The talk around the paddock over there, Greg, and I can't really say it's fair to Anna, but is that Maria not only is the better female racer, but had she maybe been on some of that equipment, some people feel like she would have won the world championship herself. I follow her pretty closely on Instagram, and as you know, over the years of racing world endurance, I've come across some really fast female riders from overseas. Lucy Glockner comes to mind. Nina Prince comes to mind. They were racing superbikes over there, and they were so fast. I think that María Herrera is every bit on their level. I do believe she'll be a top 10 runner in Supersport with the opportunity to maybe do better. If you follow any of the racing that she's been doing, even last year, she was giving Anthony West some pretty serious runs for his money, like right behind him or running ahead of him in some of the CEV stuff over there last year. So when you look at her, what she's capable of, she's 22 years old. She's always on a bike. She's flat tracking, motocrossing, doing the thing. I think she's going to be great. What a great addition for that championship to have her involved.
Yeah, and listen, the CEV championship is no joke. I mean, there are some incredible talent racing in there coming out of there. And back in 2013, when she was racing in that series, Moto 3, she was the first female to win a FIM CEV Repsol Series race. And she did it at Aragon. And she did it on, a Moto 3 bike. And then she won another one later on that season. And when she went into the final round in Jerez, she was leading the championship. Now, she retired from that final race and she ended up fourth in the championship, 13 points behind the champion, who, by the way, was Fabio Quartararo. Okay, Quartararo, obviously, we know is a stud. So, she knows how to win races already, and she's incredibly fast. And as she gets older, now she's 22 years old. So you got to figure what, man, in 2013, she was somewhere in that was 5 years ago. So she was
6 years ago. So
6 years ago. So so she's 22 now. Yeah. So 16, 17 years old. So yeah, I think it's a great move. And, it's in one aspect, Jason, and we're going to talk about this on another show. We have it on our list to talk about women in racing and to talk about, the women who have influenced racing to this point and who do well and work hard at it. But at some point, I hope one day to not have to say that this person's a woman. I mean, it's always going to be a factor, obviously, but when you look across the aisle at, say, drag racing and stuff, they don't often denote the distinction between the two. It's more just the name of the person. So because there've been women champions for so long in that series. So I mean, I'm really pumped. I know that there's some haters out there that are like, she's not going to finish the season, or her Moto E test wasn't that great. But I mean, you can't judge it off of Moto E. It was a new bike, new tires. They were sharing bikes. I mean, I'm just really pumped.
They've done one test. There's always going to be haters, and that's fine.
Yeah.
María Herrera is the absolute real deal. There's no question about that. So I think it'll be interesting to see. She's going to get to do some testing before the first race, I hope. And but she's already used to 600, Greg. It's not like she's not ever
Yeah.
ridden a 600. She'll be up there at some races too. I think at some of the tracks. And you're right. The fact that she's a female should have no bearing on our thoughts about how competitive she could be. It's just the society that we live in. I think that women still are trying to prove themselves in a predominantly male-dominated sport. And when we have our talk about women who have paved the way kind of for other ladies, right now we're seeing more and more women at the racetracks. We're seeing more and more women at track days. It's fantastic. And I think that it's only a matter of time before we see a lady literally up in the front of a 600 championship or whatever it is. And that has taken nothing away from Anna Carrasco this year. She just did such an incredible job. She won a couple races, was consistent. And if you watched her at the last race in France, she qualified so far back, like 24th, but she was only like point like 9 or 1.1 seconds off a pole. And she fought all the way up to the front, did Anna, to finish, I think, 9th or 10th to collect. She won by 1 point. So
Right.
she had to
And
charge that entire race.
Yeah, it was that last pass that she had to make or whatever to win that championship. You know, so no,
Yeah,
I
well,
totally agree.
nah,
So
it's great. Another thing came out this week, Greg, and this one really caught my attention, and I'm excited about it. But American Flat Track announced that Motorsports and Motorcycle Hall of Famer and my friend Jeff Ward will race all 5 singles TT races in 2019 on a KTM. What do you think about that? I mean, what's your initial thought when you read that Wardy's going to go racing, especially in a series as competitive as American Flat Track TT stuff?
I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. This guy has raced so much stuff. You know, he's such a good dude, right? And he's 57 years old, and this is the thing that I keep bringing up to people. It's why people ask me like archery, like why did you get into archery? And I'm like, because as a competitive person, you don't lose your competitive fire. It's the reason that draw me into motorcycle racing was because I was competitive. You're a competitive person. We fight all the time on who's winning this and who's winning that. And I don't think you ever lose that edge. And for a guy like Jeff Ward, I mean, Jay, just look at this, okay? 84, he wins the 125 motocross title. 85, he wins the 250cc motocross and supercross titles. 87, he was second, okay, in 250. But he captured his second 250 title in 88. And then in 89, he won the 500cc motocross championship, becoming the first rider in history ever to win every major AMA motocross title. He's won supermoto titles. He finished third at the Indianapolis 500. That's a car, people, okay? He's done off-road racing. Like, the dude can just race anything. So I don't, he's 57 years old. He's going flat track racing. I can tell you this, Jason, that he did say in the press release, quote, most folks probably don't know this, but I started racing flat track and TTs as a youngster and then gradually moved to motocross. So I've got some pretty deep flat track roots, unquote. I just think it's a great move. I think it draws a lot of attention to the series from possibly an older audience that used to watch flat track or knows motocross, whatever, and follows Jeff. And I just love it all around, not only for the sport itself, for the PR involved or the exposure, but just because he's a good dude. Now, with that said, I've only dealt with him, like at the racetrack from time to time and had conversations, but weren't you guys teammates in a car at one point?
Yeah, I got to give you my 2 cents on everything that you just said, because
okay,
when you think about what Jeff has done, all right, when I was a kid, I was predominantly like a Honda guy, so I was always like a Johnny O'Mara guy when I was young. That's just what I wore the same gear. I did all that stuff, as a kid. And my friend was a Jeff Ward guy, so he had Cowies, I had Hondas. I mean, we were kids. Little did I know that over the years, as they passed, obviously I admired Jeff from everything he did, but then I got to race with him. I got to be a teammate to him in 2009. Jeff, Scott Russell, and myself did the Rolex 24 Hour down at Daytona. And the thing about both those guys, and I throw Scott into the conversation too, I felt so privileged to be there and listen to the stories because I spent so much time with them. But what I really got from Jeff was it was amazing to hear what he's accomplished, who he is, what he's done. And he's not the guy that talks about himself. He's not the guy that puts himself out there for everybody to know. The fact that he's won 7 championships in all different disciplines, I mean, and he continues to put himself out there. I think the interesting story about this whole flat track thing is, and you brought it up, we're competitive. We want to be competitive. I chose golf, you chose archery. This guy's going into another form of motorsport.
Right.
And let's be honest, there's no cage, there's no car, there's no nothing. This is American flat track right now is as competitive as it's, I mean, especially in the singles class, it's competitive as it's been. I mean, they're going to have X amount of guys down there at Daytona lining up for the first TT of the year. And here's Jeff Ward. And I hate even bringing his age up, but yeah, 57 years old. And he's throwing himself out there saying, hey, I want to go try this. There's no ego. There's no like, it's yeah, I'm Jeff Ward. I'm here to have a good time. I want to see how this works. Good time, but he wants to do as good as he could, as well as he can.
Right,
obviously.
like you're not looking at Jeff Ward going, oh, he's just trying to relive glory days. That's
No.
That's not what he's about, right? Like, and some racers do that, you know.
I mean, him and David Bailey and Mickey Diamond did the Race Across America a couple of years ago. That if you follow him on Instagram, you saw that they trained and they rode bicycle across America. You know, obviously team thing, but unbelievable. I mean, I know that's something that you know a lot about, the cycling part of it. And I mean, he's down there, you know, he's down south, he's training. I saw Jack Miller with him, and there's just a group of people that he's associated with him, got associated with. And when I was with him in 2009, he was kind of looking for that next thing. What's he going to do? Kind of where is he going to be? What's going to happen? And originally Ricky Carmichael was in that seat. And then Ricky had some other commitments with the truck and things that he was racing at the time. So when they told me that they're bringing Jeff Ward in, I was like a kid. I was like so pumped because I just heard about Jeff and I'd never got to hang out with him. And we would go to lunches and just his stories and how he tells them with zero ego, just very matter of fact. It's going to be another reason why I'm going to watch flat track this year, because I think it's going to be fun to watch Wardy continue to improve, and he will. And I thought it was so neat that it came out this week that he's going to be doing that anyways.
And by the way, just to continue on, in 2004, at the age of 43, he won the AMA Supermoto Championship. In 2006, he won the X Games Supermoto Championship at 45. In 2006, he also won the AMA Supermoto Championship for a second time. In 2008, at the age of 47, he won another X Games Supermoto. And one thing I do want to say about, actually a couple more things. One is he did win an IndyCar race in 2002. Yep. And in 2009, that year that you guys raced, he went to Lucas Oil Off-Road Trucks. And in Lucas Oil Off-Road Trucks, he was the Rookie of the Year. He was the Dirt Sport Rookie of the Year. And he finished second in the championship by one stinking point. He almost won another national championship in 2009. So
in a completely
with all that in mind,
again.
Yeah, he's ageless. He's from Scotland, by the way, which I didn't know until I started doing research on him. But with all that in mind, Jason, can Jeff Ward win a TT race in 2019?
Well, it's kind of like asking if the Patriots can win the Super Bowl. You know, like you wouldn't bet against them. You wouldn't. No, nobody wants them to win, right, Greg? I mean, the Pats, but you wouldn't bet against them.
You're dumb. You're just straight up dumb.
But no, I would never bet against Wardy. Like, look, if the guy's strapping a helmet on, he's there for a reason. And on a night, I think that he could. There's no reason why I would never bet against the guy. There's no reason why he couldn't win. He knows what he's up against. I saw on Instagram this morning he was at Malcolm Smith Motorsports picking up a couple KTMs, and he had him in the back of his truck, and he writes there like, I got to get a truck again because obviously maybe he doesn't have a truck anymore, but he's talking. It's really kind of a cool story. And don't forget, Jeff Ward is also that very, very famous kid at the beginning of On Any Sunday who's doing that stand up wheelie on the mini bike. I mean, his like I don't know of somebody in our sport that stood the test of time. Is there anybody? I don't honestly know if there's anybody that stood the test of time the way Jeff has and has been so influential and done as much as he has over the years. and so many different disciplines and be that good at everything. Amazing.
Ricky Johnson comes to mind as someone close in terms of being able to cross over, to trucks and things like that. But you're right. I mean,
well, McGrath is doing that now. Jeremy won the championship last year or a couple years ago. So for sure. But I mean, when you think of
IndyCar, I mean,
everything. I thought he finished second in the Indy 500. I thought he was second at the Indy 500.
It says right here that
I don't want to have to correct you 2 weeks in a row. I mean,
okay. Here's the deal with Indy. In '97, he finished third at the 500 in his maiden voyage. Finished 30th. He earned his first career pole in '98. He had 4 top 5 finishes. In '99, he had a career best second place at Indianapolis 500. Yep.
There you go.
Finished 4th in 2000. Had 2 top 5 finishes. I mean, yeah, he knows how to race. Period. He knows how to race, and he's just got crazy will to keep doing it, and he's got crazy skills. And with that quote, if you have a little bit of a foundation in dirt track as a kid, because you have to say, Wardy, he says, as a kid I raced flat track. Well, you're 57. It wasn't like it was right around the corner, So it was like when Nicky Hayden went flat track racing, and he was like, I was a kid, I was flat tracking. Yeah, that was like 6 years ago for Nick, but still, I think it's great all the way around. I love that he's adding another discipline to his resume. His Wikipedia page is going to get larger, and I'm happy.
They're going to need a whole section for him. Yeah,
a whole new section. So I'm happy for him, without a doubt. Now, all right, so that's the Jeff Ward thing, and of course we know he's a Supercross champ. So why don't we transition then into our Supercross talk, because we have a couple things to talk about, obviously, with Supercross. But Jay, before we get into all that stuff, I'm really happy to say that JGR MX Yoshimura Factory Suzuki Racing's Chad Reed will be a weekly contributor here on this podcast. So before we get into the results and the race and all that stuff, I asked Chad, what's up with you for 2019?
Yeah, so this year I'm on the, what is the factory, the official factory Suzuki team through JGR and Yoshimura. So really exciting, to be honest. I'm obviously at a point in my career where it's winding down, and it's kind of like year to year and race to race at this point. So my career started at Suzuki. So if this is the end, it excites me that it can start and finish, on the brand that was obviously very loyal to me when I was a kid, and when I first went pro in my first 2 years and things like that. So yeah, and it's kind of led from one thing to another, like literally from a test to a race to a couple other races, and then now I got a full Supercross season ride. So for me, it's about hoping that I can contribute to the team in the way that I would like to, and giving them a good base, and somehow maybe even staying around in the future and helping them beyond my racing years. So so far so good.
Well, first off, you got a big shout out to Chad, thanking him for being part of our podcast, and I know his time is, these Supercross guys, they have no time off. They are pinned all the time, and the fact that he's allowing himself to come and be a part of what we're doing, thank you, Chad. I love it. I think it's so cool that he still wants to put the time in. Supercross is such a dedicated discipline, and the fact that he's still willing to put his body through that grind. I mean, it goes right back to even like talking about Wardy. I think that Supercross racers all have kind of like a date that they feel like, okay, an expiration date, if you will, of, by the time I'm 32, 34, things are slowing down. Chad's still going full bore. And I think you told me, Greg, and I've been reading a lot, obviously, and I see his Instagrams as well, that he's moved from Florida to be closer to the team. I mean, it takes dedication to do that stuff. It would probably be pretty easy for him to stay in Florida, do what he's doing, but he's throwing himself at it full tilt. And it's a great move by JGR to have kind of a Supercross legend like Chad be part of their team this year, especially after Weston Pike went down. I don't know who could have been better, because it's going to give that team a lot of notoriety. And I think Chad doesn't want to just, I saw how frustrated he was last year in his interviews. He doesn't want to just be out there riding around. He wants to be as competitive as he can be. And maybe being on that factory Suzuki will give him that opportunity.
Exactly, Jason. And so the next question naturally led into, me asking about his competitiveness, and what he had to say was pretty telling.
I mean, I really do believe that I can be competitive, and I think that like the hottest part of the weekend for me is really the first 3 rides on the track. My 1 lap pace in my prime was a struggle, and then now I'm 36 years old, which on this weekend I'm now the oldest guy to ever ride Supercross. So uh, a stat that I was unaware of, but when I read it, I kind of had a little bit of a giggle to myself. But yeah, I mean, I think I think I have the speed and the racecraft and the experience to get it done and be up on the podium and obviously challenge for that win. Um, for me, I expected to be close to this weekend in the racing, but I didn't allow myself that chance because I didn't qualify well out of the day qualifying, and then I got a terrible start in the heat race, which then forced me through the last chance. So I really didn't give myself a shot at it this weekend, and I think that they were prime conditions for me to have a shot at it. When I watched the TV and things like that, like um, nothing was done special. I mean, it was only 3 weeks ago that I raced, or a month ago that I raced in the mud in New Zealand, and kind of felt like I had a pretty, 3 pretty easy wins over Dean Wilson. So, seeing him lead 15 laps and knowing that I feel at least I could be at that level. Not taking anything away from him. Obviously, he looked like he rode awesome. But just giving myself the chance from the beginning is really the biggest thing. And my starts have been on point, but this weekend were terrible. So I think I just need to work on that, and I need to work on my 1 lap pace to give myself a better shot at the heat races and then giving myself a good gate pick for the main event. And I think that if I can do that, I think it'll all fall into place.
See, I love the fact that he's just still deep in thought about how to go
Oh
faster.
man, you could sense it, can't you? Like, well, 3 things that came to mind there is don't tell Jeff Ward that Chad's the oldest guy because you never know. Wardy might just line up at Anaheim too to see if he could try to qualify. No, but the thing is that when you even hear what he said about what he did in New Zealand, taking nothing away from Dean Wilson, who ran absolutely spectacular on Saturday night, but when you look at that, Chad's still in the mindset of, okay, I saw what this guy did at Anaheim, and I just came from New Zealand with similar conditions. I could still do this. Whenever have we heard of, and really, Greg, this is probably because I'm, as far as Supercross goes, I'm not in that as much. So obviously I'm in road racing, but when you hear these guys talk about qualifying and his 1 lap pace and how important that is for gate pick, I mean, we know what gate pick is very, very, very important. But like when he starts talking, I think he was 18th qualifying this weekend. And so that's going to put him for his heat race. It's probably going to put him 9th gate pick, and they take top 9 from each one of their heats. So you don't get the right gate pick, and it can definitely affect your whole night. So that 1 lap pace that he's talking about will be something that I'm sure he's going to work on. But you can still hear it in his voice of when you're comparing or you're drawing a comparison to somebody that has had a little bit of success or has shown that they have the speed, and he has currently ridden or raced and beat the person he's talking about. That's in a racer's mind, that's just kind of like saying, I feel like I can still be where that person was or is. Chad did. He came all the way back from quite a ways back in that race and to finish 9th. He was still on the lead lap too, which was good because I think they lapped up through 10th or 11th, and so he was charging the whole way through. There was a couple guys this weekend that did that. Cooper Webb was another one that went backwards. He charged forward, very similar to what Chad is talking about there. So, yeah, I think if he gets that 1 lap qualifying and he can get a better gate pick, maybe his nights will be a little bit easier.
Transitioning right into the race, since you were really talking about it, into Anaheim #1, the kickoff to the Monster Energy AMA Supercross season. Justin Barcia won the race over Ken Rocks and Eli Tomac. Dean Wilson, who, as Chad mentioned, led the race early on, he finished in 4th. Cooper Webb in 5th. Aaron Plessinger in 6th. Malcolm Stewart in 7th. Muscan, Chad Reed in 9th, and Cole Seeley in 10th. It was a crazy race, was it not, Jason? I mean, obviously the rain was coming down. Couple crashes right at the beginning of the race, as we normally see, but it was big names. Riders clawing their way through the field. Dean Wilson out in front. Justin Barcia clawing his way back up. Malcolm Stewart looked like he had a podium spot. I mean, I thought it was just a great, crazy race all the way around. Wasn't a race for the lead all the time, but what was shuffling on behind the lead was very interesting to me.
Well, Anaheim 1 historically has always produced like crazy results. Guys who might win the first race and never win another race, or guys who win the first race and don't win another race throughout that year or whatever. A lot of people come to mind when I think of that. But the fact is that Barcia hadn't won a race since 2013, hadn't won a Supercross, and I mean that's a long time. When you've been in the sport that long and you go, what do they have? 18 rounds a year, so he's tons of races have gone by, and Barcia wins. I think seeing Dean Wilson at the front for the first 15 minutes of that race, this is a guy that has kind of journeyman approach the last couple of years.
Through
kind of been there
too.
when people have gotten hurt. Yeah, he got hurt really bad, and then he's kept coming back. Again, I follow all these guys on Instagram, so he went testing all the different bikes and settled back on the bike that he rode last year, the Husky. He came back, but I'll tell you the surprise for me was Malcolm Stewart. He looked thinner, he looked fitter, he looked from the beginning of the day, from qualifying to his heat races. You kind of sit there and you think, okay, Malcolm has shown that one lap speed in the past. He's going to be the guy that's always going to kind of go backwards and then finish 12th or 8th or 10th or whatever. But his 7th was a fighting 7th. I mean, he tipped over, basically trying to pass for the lead, tried to go underneath Dean in a right-hand corner and just kind of tipped over in the mud, got back up, kept fighting. And in the meantime, it seemed like to me, Greg, that the regulars, the guys who were all the favorites. So you could pick Tomac and Musquin, right? Roxon, all those guys. You take those guys that were kind of the favorites, and they were kind of on safe mode. I feel like, because I think Anaheim 1 has proven in the past that it's one of those races where crazy things happen. It looked like those guys were just, I mean, even in their heat races, trying to get points. Roxon looked solid all night, second in his heat. Ran second in the main event. He looked solid, but it was weird. It wasn't weird to me to see Barcia win, because you always get these crazy winners at Anaheim 1. But some of the other guys like Dean Wilson, Malcolm Stewart, seeing those guys up front. Cooper Webb did a good job coming back through the field on his new KTM ride. I think Supercross is in a good state right now. It's going to be an interesting season.
And no question, you can't judge Anaheim 1 off of what's going to happen the rest of the season. There's no doubt about it. I mean, injuries happen in Supercross. It's horrible. But you have guys like Blake Baggett, for instance, who qualified 5th, and you thought, okay, Blake's going to be ripping it up. He drifts back to 12th. You have Jason Anderson, who didn't qualify very well, but your national champ ended up like it was a boat anchor on the back of his motorcycle, and he ended up
crazy.
14th. Yeah. Justin Bogle's another one that comes to mind.
I thought he would come out, a lot of the talk, sorry, Greg, a lot of the talk about Jason Anderson is that he didn't really gain the respect that a lot of people feel like he deserves, me included, from winning the championship last year. We talked last week about this is a long, hard, grueling championship that you have to be there. And for whatever reason, it seems like if somebody gets hurt and somebody comes in and wins the championship, there's an asterisk next to it or something. And to me, that's just so unfair, because you got to race. Racing's racing. You got to be able to withstand the season and the schedule. And these guys, I mean, they're on a plane, Sunday morning back home, and they're right back at it again during the week to get ready for flying out Thursday to be there for press day Friday. But the tracks they ride during the week are every bit as gnarlier than what they're racing on Saturday night. And I mean, to do that many laps over the course of the year and try to keep yourself healthy, any kind of little niggling injury that bothers you, a shoulder, an ankle, a foot, a knee, whatever it is, these guys race through that. And that's why what I thought Jason Anderson was going to come out this weekend and really show it to everybody that, hey, like, here's the deal. And you're right, Greg. He kind of struggled. He got decent starts and then just kind of went backwards. He got a decent start in his heat race, went backwards. Got a great start in the main, was 3rd behind Stewart and Wilson. And I was thinking to myself, well, those are 2 guys he's probably happy that are in front of him. He'll maybe make quick work of them and then move forward. Those other two guys just rode so well, though, and Jason went backwards.
And I got to be honest, dude. It gives me the shits to listen to people say, "Well, he won a championship, but there's an asterisk by it." It's
Yep.
I get the perception in Supercross. MotoGP is a lot like this. I think AMA
Yep.
Superbike was like this. When you have people that dominate, say like Ben Spies won 3 in a row, Matt Mladen won 7, the amount Valentino Rossi has won, or Marquez has won, or in Supercross, the amount of championships that Ricky Carmichael won, that Jeremy McGrath won, that
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know what I mean, that Dungey won, that people now are kind of discounting one championship. And I'm like, listen,
Yep.
Nicky Hayden had one championship. Kenny Roberts Jr. had one world title. Who cares? He was the best
They were
rider
there.
that
They
year.
did it.
They did it. And the fact of 1 or 7, you know what I mean? Like I get it. The legacy is great, but I think that tends to be it in Supercross because you have a rider that can get up there and dominate for so long. And you're just like, well, if you get 2, you're all right. If you get 3, now we're in business, you know? And
Oh, it sucked. Yeah, totally, Greg. You're so spot on this. And the thing that frustrates me the most is that it's that person who ends up winning the championship worked just as hard as everybody else to do it, and now you're discrediting it because of a circumstance that was out of their control. And I see the hate, and I see it all the time. I try to stay away from it, but you and I talk a lot about the stuff that we see or the stuff that we've read, and even some stuff that was said about María Herrera this week. I don't understand. I mean, we just live in a society now where people want to drag others down, and when it comes to winning a championship, a lot of us that raced, we had dreams when we were kids, and you put that work in, and when you win a championship and then to see something get discredited to me is just so unfair, and it sucks. And it's like Chad talking about Chad racing right now, there's people that sit there and go, oh man, I can't believe he's still riding, I can't believe he's still racing, I can't believe, you know what, why do you even care? Like, the guy's still out there, he's busting his ass, he's trying, he wants to be there. Get behind that side of it rather than get behind the fact that he's 36 years old and you're jealous that he's still out there racing. You know what I mean?
yeah. And on any given Saturday in Supercross, he could win a race. There's no doubt.
100%. I mean,
100%.
no question.
The last thing I'll say about that whole championship run is I remember when Josh Hayes won his first Superbike title right after Matt had won 7 and Spies had won 3. And, a lot of people discounted Hayes' championship the first year. And I wonder when it was that Josh finally gained respect after his 3rd Superbike championship, after his 4th. You know what I mean? But the fact is that I think the more championships you win, the bigger of a legend that you become. But to win any championship, I've never talked to a kid who said, I have a dream one day of winning 10 MotoGP world titles. It's all or Supercross titles. It's usually I have a dream to be a Supercross champion or a dream to be a motocross champion. So I think Jason Anderson, deserves more credit for what he did. I don't care that Tomac hurt himself. That's part of the sport. It's that old adage: to finish first, you first must finish. Same thing with a championship. If you want to have the most amount of points, score points. You can't get hurt.
Greg, what's so funny about what you said there is like, it's like the more championships you win, you're either known as a legend or you're known as a sandbagger.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, sure.
When you hear about Matt Mladen winning championships,
what's the tipping
like,
point?
Oh my gosh, Matt Mladen, he cherry picked over here. Then when Josh was winning a championship, oh my gosh, Josh just, we know who's going to win the championship. Johnny Ray, we know who's going to, like, make up your minds. The person who's winning, give them respect. That's the biggest thing that you can do is give them the respect. So this weekend, we kind of started something with a little fantasy Supercross action.
I know where you're going.
And excuse me, I'm getting all choked up here, Greg, because you're so far back. You're so far back in the standings. I feel a little sorry for you. But we started Greg's Garage Pod and the Rocky Mountain Fantasy Supercross. What place are you in right now? I've noticed that we've got some really good people in our group, and we're going to have to get those to all identify who they are for us, because there's a few of them that we know. We know who Ralphie 95 is.
Yeah, we know who Ralphie 95 is.
We know who Ralphie
producer
95
Dan is.
We know producer Dan for sure.
We don't know who Valley 46 is. I don't think it's actually Valentino. I'm pretty sure it's not Rossi himself. So,
well, it could be. You never know.
All right,
could be.
So, all right. So First of all, let's just back up a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
When we actually made our picks Saturday night,
here we go.
We had 4 or 5 people in the league, okay?
Yeah.
When the race was over and the results came out, you were leading the league. And I have to give you credit. You got
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
No, I cannot. It pained me. I actually think I have a sciatica that acted up when I said it.
Yeah. Well,
because you're not leading the league anymore. You're not leading the league anymore. But the way it works is pretty simple. You get points 1st through 5th, so you have to pick who you think is going to be 1st through 5th. If you have a rider in the top 5 that you chose, regardless of if you picked, Barcia is going to be 1st, Ken Roxon's going to be 2nd. If you pick Barcia
finished in the
5th,
play,
in the top 5, then you get some points. And the weird thing is that you have a ringer. If you pick who's in 10th place, then you get a full 26 points. So it's 26 for 1st. So there's a total possible 133 points each round available. When it was over with the 5 we had initially in our group, you were leading the way with 26 points. I'm back there with 10 whopping points. However, the good news is that some clown named Scuba Steve 598 joined, and he has 34 points. Taylor Knapp is in, former racer and now Dunlop tire tester, has 33, which actually at the end of the day puts you 5th. So I'm gonna
have to find these guys and get them busy.
Can you talk crap about me because you're 5th and I'm 12th? Oh, yeah.
Look, let's just be honest. There's one guy I'm focusing on in that deal.
It's the only one I care about in this whole thing.
There's only one.
There's only one guy I want to beat.
I love Taylor Knapp. He could beat me. I'm not happy about it, but it's a long season.
Yeah,
but I don't care.
Roger Hayden can beat me up. I don't care. Go ahead.
Roger Hayden can beat. I don't care about that. I love good. Raj.
Yeah, Raj. Yeah, sure.
If there's 12 people and I'm 11th, you know who I'm hoping who's 12th. That's it.
Don't matter.
So
I got to put JT43 behind my ass. Okay, you understand?
The problem is the problem is, Greg, is that historically through your racing, where you're at in this league right now is where you're comfortable. So
is that right?
Yeah,
my overall ranking is 48,386, and you think I'm comfortable there?
I'm not that much further up than you. How do these guys score 90? How they score 96 out of 133 points? Anyways,
I don't know.
I even got my guy Kevin involved in this. I think he's ahead of you. Is he ahead of you?
What's his thing? Oh,
Kevin Callan.
He got 15 points.
He's ahead of you.
I'm ahead of Corey Alexander. I'm ahead of Corey.
That's fine. Corey was having a bad night. I was there for Corey. He was miserable. Miserable.
And listen, this is the greatest thing about Supercross, okay? And before we go any further, Jason, I need to issue an apology to my television because without question, I hurt my television's feelings because I was screaming at that television. And I had to say, later on TV, I'm sorry, you were just a delivery device. You weren't actually what I was yelling at. And I screaming at the television. And I hope Chad Reed doesn't listen to this because I picked Chad 10th. And when he got into 9th, I was cussing him up and down too. Like, what are you doing, man? Can somebody...
Hey, Chad, I had you in the top 5, Chad. I had you in the top 5.
I'm just saying
you
based off of qualifying.
That's rude. The guy's going to be on our podcast, and you're admitting publicly what is wrong with you?
It's the last time that happens. Do you understand?
There's something wrong with you, man.
It's the last time that happens. I was just saying because I looked at the qualifying. He said it earlier in the podcast. He didn't give himself an opportunity. And here's the thing that we often see in Supercross racing is it can happen that once you settle into a position that you only kind of go back or forth 1 or 2 positions. I mean, it's not as bad as road racing because, people can fall down any moment or, they can get tired, arm pump or something like that. But I just kind of thought, okay, listen, Chad qualifies 18th. He had to go through the last chance qualifier. If he can get a good start and settle into 10th, 12th place, he's going to work his way up to 10th and he'll sit there. And it's what happened until Cole Seeley started to go backwards. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. That 10th place spot in that fantasy league is pretty important. I think I had Tyler Bowers 10th, so he got taken out early and didn't quite get there. But
by the way, people that are listening, okay, Jason and I weren't texting during the race talking about fantasy only because he was at the racetrack. But if you're ever at home on a Saturday night and I'm home on a Saturday night, you can guarantee that my phone's going to be burning up if I'm scoring more points than he is, even if it's lap number 2, which never ends up the way the race is going to be. But still, it's if you've never watched Supercross playing fantasy, just go for it. It's kind of fun. You just got to make a commitment to picks, to make your picks. And if you want to join our group, it's Greg's Garage Pod. Like, just search for it, on the rmfantasysx.com. We might try to figure out some prizes, Jay, maybe for like the winner of our league.
Yeah, we could do something like that in our group. We'll figure it out. You and I aren't going to win them, so we might as well give them to somebody else.
I don't know. I mean, it's early, but I don't even know where our highest ranking person in our group is 6,650. So I don't think our group's going to be taking many prizes anytime soon. But actually, all right, Jason, speaking of, since I had a chance to talk to Chad Reed, I've always been interested because fantasy's so big in football and baseball and everything. And you hear of athletes that get absolutely pummeled or something because like they drop a pass and it could have got some fantasy person extra points and I could have won my league, and they trash them all over the place. And so I kind of, since I had Chad on the phone, I was like, so what do you think about fantasy and the fact that you're a rider and, you're involved in fantasy? And here's what he had to say.
Yeah, Dan Truman runs my VIP experience for me, and he's heavily involved in your competing one with the Pulp MX one. So I'm constantly hearing about it, and this guy ruined his fantasy, and he's constantly mad at these people, and I'm like, dude, you think you're mad, like you should try being on the actual receiving end, or and like he's like, how you feeling this weekend? Should I pick you? And obviously some weekends I'm a good choice, and other weekends I'm not such a good choice. So it's not for me.
Yeah, well, for now,
yeah.
like maybe when he's done, he'll have a laugh about it. But yeah, it's got to be weird seeing your name and people picking you and not picking you and choosing you and then talking trash about you if you didn't do this or didn't do that. Yeah, it's got to be pretty weird.
I mean, the lucky thing is I don't think the Pulp MX one is awesome, by the way, but I think that one costs money to be in, and there's serious money in it because I think it's run out of Vegas or something. But the one we're doing is just for fun. But I can't imagine that the amount of backlash the rider gets, like a Malcolm Stewart or whatever. I think I had him picked to be 4th or something, and he drifted back. I'm not sending him a tweet saying how dare you? You know what I mean? Like, who
what's
cares?
wrong with you?
Yeah, what's wrong with
Didn't
you?
you know I had you?
It's just for fun. But so if you want to join us, feel free. It's rmfantasysx.com. They're not sponsoring this podcast or anything else. This is just something that we chose to do just to have fun. And Jason and I are very competitive against each other. Mad Skills Motocross. Video games across the board for sure. A couple times I clowned him on the racetrack and beat him. He was upset during those AMA Nationals. You know what we should do, Jay, is get a fact checker. Don't you think we should probably find somebody to fact check some of the things that come out of my mouth? Maybe. Are you there? Hello?
Yeah,
Are you still
I'm
there?
here. I could fact check most of the stuff that comes out. So
I never beat Jason on the racetrack. Never.
Yeah.
There's one time when I didn't beat him.
I'm letting that
laps.
go a little bit.
2 laps. Yeah, for sure. But anyway, Greg's Garage Pod.
I have to let that go.
The group. Yeah, let it go.
Dude, I wonder how many. We should do a deal to see how many people have been lapped twice in a race.
That's not fair. That's not fair because it was Pikes Peak. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It doesn't. It's a short track. I get it.
It was Pikes Peak.
Where was it though that you decided that this is a really good idea that I'm still out here even though I've been lapped twice? Okay, what goes through your mind? Hello?
First of all, I was only lapped twice once, and it was my first race. And second of all, I had a microphone in my helmet and a camera on my bike. And I remember that after the race, they asked me, and I said, I got lapped twice, hot panties. So,
Congrats, Greg. That's like, I don't know of anybody else that I could call right now and they could have this conversation, but good job. Hey, you're in the history books.
So for that, it's now time for our quick shift segment presented by ARAI. Jason, even though ARAI helmets meets all safety standards, they don't just build a helmet for safety alone. Comfort is huge, and a better fitting helmet is not only more comfortable, but protects you better. With multiple available interior shapes and extensive range of interior liners and removable cheek pads, your ARAI helmet can be customized to deliver the perfect fit for you. Visit ARAIAmericas.com for information on tech, fit, and paint jobs. So our quick shift segment, we're going to limit the amount of time that we have to talk about a topic. And when time is up, that's what you're going to hear. But it doesn't mean we're going to stop talking. So Jason, first topic up for quick shift is in Speed Week, or www.speedweek.com. They had an exclusive interview with KTM factory MotoGP racer Pol Espargaro. Pol said that with Tech 3 and Dani Pedrosa on board, quote, in 2019, we will learn as much as in 6 normal years, unquote. True or not?
I say not. 6 years, we don't know where we're going to be in 6 years from now. Where's MotoGP going to be in 6 years from now? Or I don't believe that Dani Pedrosa's got 6 years worth of technology type of thing.
What I think he was saying, Jason, was that we're going to learn in 1 year what other teams learn in 6 years.
Yeah, I still think that's a little much. Maybe 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. I think, but who am I to say? I'm not in that world. I mean, Pol knows a lot better than I do. So, but it just seems a little bit fetched for me. And
but is Dani going to be healthy to start testing and give him feedback anyway?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because there was a report that came out that he has a double stress fracture in his collarbone, and he's getting some stem cell stuff done to that. So it's going to rule him out of some testing, which obviously that's why he's there. So come February, when these bikes are getting rolling around Sepang and so on, he's not going to be there for the first 4 days of testing. So, and I know KTM was really hoping for that. He rode the bike at the end of December. Not a lot was said about it that I got to see or read up on. But also in that speedweek.com, it was confirmed by KTM that Dani Pedrosa will not have any wild card rides. The quote was that he has no plans to race again. Are you surprised by that, Greg?
I'm not surprised because of the way he raced, I guess, the end of the season. Like, I think I've been around racers long enough to see when a racer is kind of over the actual racing component of it. Obviously, he still wants to ride. He still has a lot to give and all those types of things. But it doesn't surprise me, that's the case. I think some people are smart enough to know when to walk away. What about you?
I definitely don't think he's going to race again. I think if he did, it would have to be on a top tier bike. I don't think the KTM is there. I think that if you take a rider that is stopped racing and you put them on something that is really, really competitive, it kind of rejuvenates them a little bit. That might have been a different thing. I think he is strictly using his role at KTM as a test rider, and it doesn't surprise me that he is not going to race again. I'd be shocked to see him line up on that KTM. Yeah,
I think you really bring up a good point, which is, look at the bike that Casey Stoner was on, and how competitive he was. He goes to a test and he was the fastest rider. He's not even doing it. So putting the added pressure of a wild card ride on the KTM itself, might not be the best thing. Now, ESPNW had a quick story about MotoAmerica racer Jamie Austadillo, and who has the lifelong distinction of being the first woman to finish on a podium in a MotoAmerica race. Now, the story is about what song motivates her, and she had this song that was from a movie that was like a show tunes type of thing. And I was curious, Jason, did you ever have a song that motivated you when you were getting out to race, or do you have one now that motivates you before I kick your ass on Mad Skills?
Oh, it's really cute that you get to write these questions the way you want to write them, Greg.
What?
Yeah, it's really cute. You know what's funny about that? I'll tell you. Back in the day, we used to have, be able to listen to a little bit of music before we went out. And there's two things that remind me really funny about this. Is one of them was Nicky, when he was my teammate. I didn't know Nicky great then. I knew him, but he was listening to the most hardcore rap that you could listen to, and I didn't see that coming when I put the headphones on. I'm not even gonna tell you the name of the song. It was that funny. But the one time I actually really listened to music before I went out was at Loud, New Hampshire. I was listening to Powerman 5000, which Rob Zombie, and I crashed 3 times in 3 different races. And I I decided that maybe the music thing wasn't for me. But for sure, when I'm playing Mad Skills on the plane, I've got music raging. So just know that. Yeah, just know that.
Well, congratulations to Jamie, though, on getting featured on ESPNW.com. I think that is awesome.
And speaking of ladies that are the real deal, she is definitely that person. She is the real deal. I think she's going to have a great year this year in our MotoAmerica Championship.
Well, that's getting close to the end of the podcast, Jason. But before we finish up, okay, I wanted to add one more thing about Chad Reed. Now, he's 36 years old, set the record for the oldest Supercross rider to take a gate this week. But we were just talking about life after Supercross because of what Jeff Ward announced and has done over the years. So I said, 2 or 4 wheels or whatever, will you continue to race once you hang up the goggles? The answer he gave is not something that he's talked about publicly yet, Jason. So it's kind of an exclusive. So here we go on Chad's answer about what's next for him after he hangs up the goggles.
Obviously, I think you follow me quite closely, and like a month or so ago, I was in Italy for the Monza rally, doing the rally and things like that, and it was just an absolute blast. Like, I can honestly say that I've, as you get older and you hear all these people, talking about, like, why do you still do it? And truthfully, the reason why you still do it is that just that sheer love and passion and feeling that you get from riding a motorcycle. And I think a motorcycle offers you something that nothing up until recently, something that I've never felt in anything else I've done. Like whenever I've done, whether it be jumping in a late model or jumping in a V8 supercar or, all these things that I'd been really fortunate to jump in and have a crack at and drive some good equipment. It just always felt like I was strapped to something that wasn't that impressive, As fast as they look from the outside, you kind of just feel like you're driving a souped up taxi with a harness, and that's, I'm sure there's tracks that give you that thrilling feeling and things like that, but like from what I seen from the outside, getting on the inside and controlling something and driving it, I didn't get that thrill that I have when I ride a motorcycle. And when I got in the rally car and doing the rally thing and just driving it, and how much more I felt that you actually controlled the race car, and then even to the point of like the night stage. The night stage felt literally identical to what I feel in Supercross, and it kind of like put me in my place a little bit, where I was like, like I started thinking about next year's event and thinking about, American Rallycross Series, taking on new ownership and the series starting in May and ending in October, and how that would fit perfectly with my schedule. And and now I find myself looking for an opportunity in a car to jump in for the Rallycross Championship. So I've been bitten by the bug for sure. I found something that gives me, I guess, the thrill and the feeling that I get from motorcycles, and I find myself thinking about it day and night. And I think that anything that you think about long enough is worth pursuing, and so I think that there's probably going to be quite a bit of rallying or some rallycross in my near future here, I think.
Jason, I mean, you've driven a car. I mean, you have unique insight into this. What do you think about all that?
Dude, that is honestly, Greg, I don't get to hear any of these before you play them. So I'm listening to them for the first time. Mm-hmm. He is so spot on. It's unbelievable. Okay. So going back, going back even from the beginning of the show, when I was Wardy's teammate down at Daytona, I got to do a lot of testing with Spirit of Daytona Racing. We had a great guy teaching us, Guy Cosmo, unbelievable guy, or teaching me. Wardy didn't really have to learn too much. But regardless of all that, I remember being in it's 24-hour endurance race. I'm pretty familiar with those from doing World Endurance. when I was in this car, and it was great. It was this trick car. I remember sitting there in the middle of the race, thinking to myself that this is fun, and I really, really loved it. And would I do it again? Absolutely. But when you look at it from the outside and you think, man, I'm going to get to race a Daytona prototype around Daytona. This is going to be most amazing thing ever. As I got into some of the longer runs, and we'd had some problems with our car too, so that definitely added into some of my issues. Our cool suits broke. Our drink filter stuff broke. It was 150 degrees in the car at 10 o'clock in the morning Sunday, and there was no cooling. There was nothing. And I remember thinking to our car caught fire, so there was a bunch of fire retardant in the car blowing around while you're going around. There was a lot of things that made you a little bit miserable. And I remember thinking to myself that this is not even coming close to taking away the thrill that I have of being on two wheels and racing and the thrill of being on a bike. It's just a different type of disciplined sport, right? So when I hear him say that he has found something, you see, I've always thought that the trophy truck thing would be really fun to have a go at. I've wanted to try that and just see kind of what it's like, and just to kind of check it out. That now he's found something that has kind of triggered him, and it's given him the same vibe or feeling that he has going and lining up on a Saturday night in the Supercross main. That's great for Chad, because it's going to keep him going through this year. It's probably going to motivate him, if nothing else, to keep his head focused on his Supercross, knowing that he's got something after this that can maybe take the place of it and make him feel like he's not really going to be missing out anything over the next 2, 3, 4 years. He's going to maybe fall into something that he could become just as passionate about. So really, really interesting soundbite you got from him there, and very relatable from my perspective on things. And I think that rounding off the show, talking about Wardy at the beginning, I think that is something that Wardy has tried to do his entire life, is to try to find that next thing that really intrigues him and keeps him fired up and keeps him motivated. And he's been able to do the same thing as McGrath and all these other guys that kind of find something else to scratch that itch that they have as far as being competitive in another form of motorsport.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm happy for Chad, because I've known racers that have left racing, and then it's like they're just standing in an empty parking lot looking around going, I don't know what's next, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think he's in a great place. I hope he has a great season. We're going to be able to talk to him.
I do too.
Hopefully after every single race. I mean, that's what we spoke about today, and schedule permitted, we'll be able to do that and get his insight into the entire Supercross season. And if it is his last season, as he kind of, in a weird way, almost alluded to at the beginning, the way he was talking about, possibly, wrapping it up with Suzuki and all that kind of stuff. But if it's his last season, it's going to be great to be able to document it here on the podcast,
Yeah, like 2 or 3 years ago, and he was riding the Cowie, and people written him off, and next thing you know, he's winning. And it was just such a shame to see him get hurt. Such a shame to see him get hurt that year, because he was right there. He was right there. And yeah, it'd be fun to see some of the old Chad come out and be competitive on that bike this year. And what I think right now is that Justin Hill's his teammate. So he's got a young teammate right now who's also had some success. So, yeah. And again, thanks to Chad for contributing to our show.
And thank you for listening. We appreciate it. And we certainly hope, if you're listening this late into the podcast, that you'll share this with everyone you know and have them download an episode. And this is episode number 11. I can't believe we've been at this for 11 weeks already, Jason. It's like time is flying by, but we hope you're entertained and you get a bit of information. Yeah. And we're looking forward to more stuff. So we'll be back at it next week. Right, buddy?
Looking forward to it, Greg. Thanks again for all your hard work on this stuff. And yeah, look forward to next week. See what comes up. And we got another week, Saturday night.
You bet your
Supercross,
ass.
So I'm
pumped
pal. About that.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it too. Fantasy. I'm going to whip you.
Greg, there's only one way up for you.
Huh?
I mean, after Corey can pull his head out, jump ahead of you. That we'll talk next week.
Bye, Jason. Bye, everybody.
See you, G-Dub. See you, everyone.